I'd like to introduce to you Dr. Rebecca Dubois, Associate Professor of Biomolecular Engineering, oh, it's tough for me to say, at UC Santa Cruz, whose lab uses protein engineering to investigate human viruses and to develop new vaccines. I'm really excited to hear what you have to say, Rebecca, about all the latest on a new vaccine. So please join me in welcoming Rebecca to our virtual stage.
Great. Thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here. My lab at UC Santa Cruz is working on developing vaccines. And so some of the projects we're working on include developing a universal flu vaccine, as well as developing a vaccine to prevent severe respiratory syncytial virus infection in infants. So today I'm going to talk about coronavirus vaccines, where we are today, and what we might expect in the coming months. So coronavirus can be described as bad news wrapped in protein. And by bad news, I mean the coronavirus genetic information that it encodes everything that allows it to cause infection and disease, wrapped in protein. And by protein, I mean the spike proteins on the surface of the virus. So these spike proteins, you've probably heard a lot about, act like little keys, and they interact with our ACE2 receptor on our cells, and that allows them to infect our cells. So when it comes to vaccine development, we think of these spike proteins as antigens. These are recognized by our immune system. So how does our immune system respond to a virus infection? And so one major part of our immune system comes from a type of white blood cell, an antibody-producing white blood cell called B cells. So when a B cell encounters a virus antigen, such as the spike protein on the surface of coronavirus, it recognizes it as foreign, and this B cell starts producing lots and lots of antibodies. What these antibodies do is they block further infection of the virus. This whole process of generating antibodies and limiting virus infection and spread happens over the course of weeks. So vaccines are meant to stimulate a protective antibody response. Vaccines contain antigen, such as the spike, from a specific virus. So in the case of a coronavirus vaccine, it's an antigen, a spike antigen. And when you get the vaccine, that will train your B cells to make antibodies that recognize coronavirus. So if you're exposed to the virus, you have those antibodies ready to go. You won't take weeks to generate them. They're already there. They will stick like glue to the virus and prevent infection. So you were probably overwhelmed with the number of vaccine candidates that we have for coronavirus vaccine. There are traditional vaccines, such as inactivated virus that you would grow in the lab and inactivate, or live attenuated viruses that have mutations that attenuate it and prevent it from causing infections. There's what's called recombinant protein vaccines. This is the spike antigen that is made in the lab and not separately from the virus. There are viral vectored vaccines, such as the adenovirus vaccines, that bring in the genetic material so that your own body can make the spike protein that then stimulates your immune response. And that's also how mRNA and DNA vaccines work. It's genetic material that encodes the spike protein, but then your own body makes that spike antigen, and then that stimulates an immune response. So I will note that existing vaccines have been made with these technologies, whereas mRNA and DNA vaccines are a new vaccine platform that have not been approved yet. But in every single case, the goal is the same: to get our bodies to create antibodies that recognize and block coronavirus infection. So a lot of people are wondering, why is it taking so long? Back in 2009, we had the pandemic H1N1 flu, and we had a vaccine approved after 5 months. And the reason is that we have no established or licensed platform to make a coronavirus vaccine. So we really have to manufacture and test multiple platforms in parallel. In addition, we really require extensive safety testing in preclinical and clinical trials. I'll tell you more about that. And this is because vaccines are given to healthy individuals. So here is really an overview of vaccine timeline, and we've really observed this over the past year. I'll start by saying that the design of vaccines happened really quickly. As soon as the sequence of that spike antigen was released in early January, we could design vaccines. And that's because we had a lot of data from research, government NIH-sponsored research, to develop vaccines against coronaviruses. And so we had a lot of these methods in place, but they hadn't really gotten into clinical trials in humans yet. And so in April, we started clinical trials. Phase 1 and phase 2 are very limited numbers of people that are get the vaccine as a test specifically for safety and whether they induce antibody responses. Often there are different versions of vaccines that are tested, as well as maybe different doses that are tested. And once the final version and doses are tested, those undergo phase 3 clinical trials, which are large thousands of people getting tested. I will note that the reason that vaccine development has gone so fast is because we have invested in production of multiple vaccines, that is Operation Warp Speed, at risk, meaning some of those vaccines might not work or be effective, but we are investing in the production of them just in case. So this is the only data I'm going to show you, but this is showing the Pfizer vaccine. And so this is showing the levels of neutralizing antibodies, meaning virus blocking antibodies in people. This is people that have never been affected. Every dot is one person. This is people that have had COVID-19 and have recovered. You can see there's a range of levels induced by natural infection. And this is the Pfizer vaccine in vaccinated people in 2 different age groups. And you could see after the first and second dose, so 7 days after the second dose, we really get excellent levels of antibody production. And these are antibodies that block virus infection. And you can see it's really effective also in the older age groups. So right now, I will just tell you quickly about the phase 3 clinical trials that are happening. The Pfizer vaccine, the mRNA vaccine, enrolled 43,000 people, and that was split up in halves. So half of those people got placebo and half of them were vaccinated with 2 doses. I will note this is double-blinded, meaning the doctors and the patients did not know which vaccine they received. And then it's a waiting game. Wait to see when people naturally become exposed and infected to coronavirus, and see how many people developed COVID. And after a certain number of people developed it, see which one of those got the vaccine versus which one got placebo. And so they waited for 170 cases. And when they unblinded the data, it turned out that the majority, the large majority, 162 of them had received placebo, whereas only less than 10 had, oops, I'm sorry, that means vaccinated. So only a few had received the vaccine. And I will note that most of them had not severe disease. We have very similar results from the Moderna vaccine phase 3 trial. Thousands of volunteers, split in half. Of the 196 cases that they observed, 185 of them were from the placebo. Again, I'm really sorry, this is meant to be vaccinated. So only 11 were vaccinated, and none of these were severe cases. So both of these lead to approximately 95% efficacy in the vaccine, and that is just really fantastic news. So finally, I will just say that I've been trying to update this talk daily. Everything is happening so quickly. Both of these vaccines are being evaluated by the FDA now. We expect a decision this month. I will say as of this morning, the United Kingdom has approved the Pfizer vaccine. And so what I want to leave you guys with is a feeling that there is a light at the end of this tunnel. These two vaccines, if approved by the FDA, will allow for 40 million doses that are ready to go this month. That means 20 million people. Again, it's a shot and a booster. 20 million people can receive the vaccine in the next month or two, if approved by the FDA. And they estimate approximately 70 million vaccine doses per month in 2021. So what we can expect on a timeline is that healthcare workers and people in long-term facilities will get vaccinated in the next 2 months. And people over 65 and with high-risk conditions and essential workers will be receiving the vaccine probably by March. And then the rest of us will probably receive the vaccine by summer. I will note also that it's likely that other vaccines will work and that we also have a lot of really great treatments that continue to improve the outcomes of infection. So thank you so much. I will say that there are a lot of people at UC Santa Cruz working on addressing the pandemic. And I will also mention that my lab is funded by the National Institute of Health for the research we do. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Rebecca. That's so interesting. Gosh, as you can imagine, we all have tons of questions, and I have a couple in particular. So, you talk about the, the vaccine and the efficacy, but I think the question really is out there, like who would actually want to take it? And I know we had a poll going while you were talking, and the question, if you all haven't answered the poll, please do so now. The question was, if the FDA approves one or more vaccines this month, how likely are you to get it as soon as it is available to you? Obviously, meaning that there's going to be a ranking of distribution. Well, according to this, there's 29% of the folks that are on our meeting right now that either are undecided or unlikely. So even if there is a vaccine, first of all, would you take it? And second of all, how do you overcome the skepticism about vaccines? Because isn't it, I've heard the term, if the vaccine, if coronavirus is anywhere, it's everywhere. Like you have to eradicate it in order to really make sure that everyone is going to be healthy and not contract the disease. So what do you say to those folks?
Right. So first of all, I would say, yes, if the FDA approves a vaccine, I would be first in line to get it. First of all, I hope that I've shown you that really these undergo extreme testing. Thousands of people have received this vaccine without any severe concerning side effects. And the FDA reviews that very closely and takes that very seriously. I think also the risk of not getting it is really much greater for ourselves as well as our community. As we all know, when we protect ourselves, that protects others around us because we're not spreading it to them. And I will also note with these mRNA vaccines, which are a new technology, although it's new, they have already been tested in the last several years on other things like influenza and things. So the safety of these new kinds of vaccines actually have some long-term safety data with it.
Great. Sort of a related question to that. We have a question about how does the speed and effectiveness with which these vaccines were developed portend for the development of vaccines to treat other diseases in the future?
Yeah, I think that's really a silver lining in the vaccine world is that the ability to generate mRNA vaccines so quickly, as well as these other new types of vaccines, suggests that we're able to respond to future pandemics much more rapidly. Also, there's the possibility of mixing multiple strains more easily with this kind of vaccine. So there's potential that it could improve existing vaccines, such as the flu vaccine.
Right. And I know that a lot of people are encouraging folks to get the flu vaccine this year, especially during this time of COVID. I don't really understand the science behind that. Is that true?
Yeah, I wrote a commentary in the Santa Cruz Sentinel stressing the importance of getting our flu vaccine. That will not only reduce the impact of people with flu on our healthcare system and protect others, but also there is evidence that getting a flu vaccine can reduce, I don't know if it's infection or severity of coronavirus. And I think it's this general sort of boosting of our immune system, our antiviral immunity.
Well, I'm sorry, that's all the time we have.